Hello, sports fans. This is Joe DuPont up out at the Red Rose, ready to go to sleep. Uh, I've been doing some recollections of some people I've met, and I was thinking the other day about the time I got ambushed by astronaut Alan Bean, and it's kind of an interesting story. I've met a few of the astronauts thanks to the Planetary Studies group out in Palatine, Illinois. My father had the world's largest private collection of meteorites, and it probably is, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 in the world as far as meteorite collections. And so there's a yearly bash that they usually put on planetaries, planetaries studies, science studies. Um, and Anyhow, I was at a dinner, and our guest of honor, of course, was Alan Bean. And Alan Bean, if you don't remember, he became quite an artist, a very talented painter. He did a lot of paintings where the astronaut was up in the moon, and he's giving a salute to the American flag, and you can see the Earth in the background. And apparently, I don't know how true this is, but he managed to sneak back some lunar dust that apparently goes into every one of his paintings. So whether it's really legal to have it, or I don't know, I'm not going to be judgmental whether I know the meteorites that they got from the moon are verboten. You're not supposed to have them, can't have them. If they find out you have them, you're in trouble. You have to give them back, whether you paid for them or not. In any event, so Alan Bean and I we went to this dinner, and he gave his talk. And on the way back, I couldn't help but ask him about the poem by Gillespie, an American actually from Pennsylvania that went over and flew in the Battle of Britain and died in a midair collision up at night. But he wrote. As a matter of fact, most pilots who write these famous poems end up dead before their time. But it's a very moving poem, to the point where I cannot read it without cracking up from a standpoint of almost crying. That's how emotional it is to me. He captured the feeling of being in flight, the beauty of it, and being close to God, even though I'm not even a religious person. But the way he presents it is such a beautiful, beautiful vision. And anyhow, so we're driving back in the van back to the hotel room or motel room, and I said, Alan, I'd like to know what your thoughts are on the poem High Flight. And I said, being that you're on the moon and you must have got, pretty emotional just looking at everything. And I wonder if you ever reflected on that poem High Flight by Gillespie. All of a sudden, Mr. Bean goes nuts and starts lacing into me, and he says, "Oh, you pilots are so full of yourself." He's going on and on. And of course, he's probably right that most of us pilots are full of ourselves. But in any event, so he's going on and on. And I said, "Oh my God," I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? What the hell can I do? I'm in this van, and I got this madman yelling at me about something wrong with where the poem High Flight. So I immediately think back. I said, Mr. Bean, I said, I know a guy named Keth Ferris. He's an amazing artist, and he did a beautiful painting of a Spitfire, and he used the poem High Flight underneath the painting. And he says immediately, all of a sudden, he stops yelling at me, and he goes, "Keth Ferris? You know Keth Ferris?" I said, "Yeah, through EA chapter 73, he came and he gave this unbelievable presentation about camouflage and all his things. In fact, Keth Ferris, he painted that B-17 formation down at the Smithsonian Air Museum. And he did it with such precision. It was based upon an actual photograph that he laid out, and Clint Eastwood apparently helped him actually draw something and paint something there. Apparently, he was fascinated, and he allowed Clint Eastwood to participate in helping him to paint this thing. A small section, I don't know, it was a Coke bottle or something in the cabin or a cockpit or something. And so Alan Bean says, like I said, he said, "Keth Ferris, you know Keth Ferris." And all of a sudden he like mellowed out, he chilled out, and I don't think he said too much after explaining that I knew Keth Ferris, and I was totally impressed with the man. The guy's a genius in terms of his painting. In fact, his deal with the government that if he paints the plane, they have to let him fly it. And this includes like B-52s and stuff. The only one that he said that they didn't allow him to fly was the, I think the Warthog, because at the time they only had a single-seat version. Now, being that Keth Ferris doesn't have a pilot's license, obviously they're not going to let him in a single-seat plane. But it gets better than that. He actually flew the Mitsubishi Mu-2 with a test pilot who subsequently got his ass killed a couple weeks later. And so the deal was, he did a picture of this Mitsubishi, a beautiful painting of it. And so the deal was, after he gets done, he gets paid, and he gets to fly the plane. So the test pilot says, "Okay, you ready?" He goes, "Sure." He gets in. Test pilot sitting next to him. He fires up the engines. He goes flying down the runway. He takes off. He's flying this thing around. He does the landing. And the test pilot says, "Wow, that was pretty good. How long have you been flying? How long have you had your license?" He says, "I don't have a license." So pilot freaked out, but in any event. All right, so getting back to Alan Bean. So we went back, and the next day I guess I went back to New Jersey, and I happened to be going to the New Jersey Aviation Hall of Fame. It's a phenomenal, it's near Teterboro Airport, I think, or Caldwell Airport, I forget which one. Teterboro, I think. And they have this museum there. It's beautiful. You should see it. All kinds of neat stuff there. And anyhow, I go to this gala they have. It's an installation dinner for the people that they install into the New Jersey Aviation Hall of Fame. And I would like to think that I helped to get Barry. Just a minute. I should be able to do this. Barry Schiff in there. He actually was a flight instructor in New Jersey, and he is so cool. His writing is unbelievable, and he flew for the airlines. His son, I think, probably still flies for the airlines, but he's just a consummate pilot, just Mr. Cool. And we got him to, and what he did, he allowed. I asked if we'd speak to our aviation Mid-Atlantic Aviation Coalition people during one of our big dinners. And he said, "Sure, after I retire, I'll be happy to do it." He said, so he retired, and I gave him a call. And I said, "Listen, did you really mean what you had to say?" She, "Sure." I think we paid for his flight out or something. And he was so cool. And we took him to the airport that he used to fly out of, which is no longer an airport. It's just a shopping mall. But we went there, and so I got on the bandwagon, and I like to think that I got him in that Barry Schiff. I got him in the New Jersey Aviation Hall of Fame. So anyhow, here we are at this dinner, and who do I see at the Aviation Hall of Fame dinner? I see Keth Ferris. I go running over to him like a madman. I said, Keith, gave him a big hug. I said, you saved my life. He said, "What happened? What happened?" And I told him the story about Alan Bean going crazy on me when I mentioned high flight, and that when I mentioned Keth Ferris's name, everything became wonderful. And I said, "You saved my life." He said, "What happened?" I explained the whole thing to Keth Ferris. And Keth Ferris said, "That son of a bitch." He said, "I taught him how to paint." And he said that that the astronauts essentially learned how to pull teeth. So while they're on the way up there to the moon and back, if they had some real severe tooth problems, they could actually have the medical expertise to yank a tooth. Apparently worked on cadavers or something. So Okay, so we have this wonderful dinner and ceremony, and Keth Ferris is inducted into the Aviation Hall of Fame, and I am moved because I know the guy's a genius, and he's no matter whatever happens now, he's definitely made his mark. So here I am back in New Jersey. I'm actually back in Pennsylvania, and I'm manning I guess I'm at an election place in Canton, Pennsylvania, and I'm supposed to, I guess, either hand out stuff or I don't know. I think I was handing out literature out there, and I forget the candidate. And I decided to take a break, and I went to the used place. It's like a secondhand place, and I go in there, kill some time, and I see this book, and I think it's called Black NASA. Black NASA. You should look it up. So I go in there, I see this book, and I love books, and if it's anything to do with aviation, space, history, aviation history, sea history, mechanical things more than anything else, Shackleton's thing. But here's this book called Dark NASA, and I started reading this thing, and they start talking about how the Apollo astronauts, which Alan Bean was one of them, there's something that they're fine discussing their flight in terms of technical terms. They will tell you the speeds and the temperatures and the altitudes. Anything technical, they'll be more than happy to tell you. But they warned me in this book never, ever to talk about anything, their emotional feelings. Ask them about their emotional feelings on the moon or going to the moon. And I could not believe that this book essentially told me you were like, you're not risking your life, but this book said that, they are very, very, very sensitive about talking about their emotions and flight. And son of a gun, that's what it was. I couldn't have picked a worse thing to talk about. High flight, which to me, most pilots get all choked up reading it. So. That was very interesting. I wanted to share that to you. And I've shared that story with Julie Clark and a lot of other people, and they all got a kick at it. But Keth Ferris, God bless you. You are one amazing man. And Alan Bean, for what you did, I don't blame you because you deserve to be able to yell at anybody you want. You and the rest of your astronaut buddies are just amazing people. But I had to tell that story, and I understand now, thanks to reading that Dark NASA book. So this is Joe DuPont from the Red Rose Diner late at night, and it's 1 o'clock. And I'm going to get some sleep and get down to French Asylum tomorrow, Saturday, and hopefully hear some jazz. And so, like I said, it's good to be alive when you are exposed to people like Alan Bean and James Lovell and that type of thing. I met Carpenter, astronaut Carpenter. I've met a lot of payload specialists. As a matter of fact, I met a guy, I think his name was Acton. He was on the last surviving crew of the Challenger. And what was interesting with that is they lost one of the 3 engines going up on the Challenger just prior to the fatal flight. And I forget the name of the weather expert that he was waiting to fly right after the challenge, when the Challenger was ready to go up. And of course the Challenger blew up, and so his flight was delayed for I don't know how many years. And I asked him, I wish I could remember his name. I said, were you like nervous when this thing fired off and you finally got back in the space shuttle and you're ready to take off again? And he said, hell no. He said, I planned all my life, actively pursued to be where I was right then. And by God, he was going up, and nothing in this world would have stopped him. So that's the caliber of people that you are looking at when you're looking at these people who are involved in our space program. And so I'll have to think of some other stories to tell, but hopefully you weren't bored with this one. Joe DuPont, Towanda, Pennsylvania, signing out.